Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello, and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air global network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Victoria Helen Stone. Wall Street Journal bestselling author Victoria Helen Stone, best known for her runaway hit Jane Doe, writes critically acclaimed novels of dark intrigue and emotional suspense. During her earlier work as a romance novelist, Victoria Dahl, she won the prestigious American Library Association Reading List Award for Best Genre Fiction. Her latest release is Follow Her Down. Victoria writes in her home office high in the Wasatch Mountains of Utah, far from her origins in the flattest plains of Minnesota, Texas, and Oklahoma. She enjoys summer trail hikes in the mountains almost as much as she enjoys staying inside by the fire during winter. Victoria is passionate about dessert, aren't we all? True crime, and her terror of mosquitoes. I can join you on at least a couple of those. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you for having me.
It's so fun to have you.
It's so nice to be here in person.
I know, it's fabulous. We are here at Thriller Fest 2024. It's day 2. My voice continues to get worse every day. Georgie is also here making his little, his little appearance. Before we get into all questions about, your process and how this book came to be, can you tell our listeners a little about Follow Her Down?
Yes, so Follow Her Down is the story of Elise Rockwood, who at 35 years old returns to her small hometown in the mountains where her sister disappeared 25 years earlier. So she's trying to get her life together and face her demons, but everything gets pretty complicated when a former lover is found dead in the same place where her sister went missing.
Yes, that is just the beginning of it. So we were talking about, Elise is, and her brother Kyle is in town, and her sister Robin, who, went missing when she was just 10, right? I mean, she was little.
When Elise was 10, yeah. And Robin was 18.
Robin was 18, and Kyle was somewhere in between the two.
Yeah, I think he was 12 or 13.
Yeah, so they were really quite young. And we were talking, one of the things I wanted to talk about is the idea of, their mother is sort of this distant mom. She's, of course, as any mother would be, never recovered from the loss of Robin. And yet, she has these 2 kids who then sort of grew up with, also with an absent mother. And I kind of wanted to hear about, your thoughts on that, and then more what brought you to this story, how it came to you.
So the way I start most stories is I'm really fascinated by true crime and that kind of stuff, but more so what happens to the people involved in that story after all the police work, after the trial. What are their lives like?
Right.
The people who are left behind, right? So the story started with the idea of Elise, who was 10 years old when her teenage sister went missing. And her mom, and she understands this intellectually, her mom was hyper-focused on the missing daughter, as you would have to be.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no way around that. So Elise understands that, but there's a difference between understanding it and living as a 10-year-old child with all of the focus on a sister who's missing, the terror of that for her.
Right.
Also, it's a small town. She looks just like her sister, so that's her identity.
Yeah.
Until she runs off as soon as she turns 18, her identity is the sister of this missing girl, because they don't find out what happens to her for 10 years.
Right. And so you said you love true crime. Did this have an origin? I mean, obviously this is a story that has existed. It happens, unfortunately, way too regularly, right?
Yeah.
Is this a specific story that they...
No, not a specific story. It's more about, because her sister was 18 when she disappeared from a party in the mountains. And so it's more that just like, oh, she's 18. She probably ran off. Nobody's paying any attention. She was out drinking and, so it was more just that inspiration of so many stories you hear like that, especially from back then,
right?
When they would say, oh, it needs to be 48 hours. Oh, she probably ran away, So it was just the accumulation of hearing all of those kind of
written
things.
and sort of she was written off
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the sort of what's so interesting about this book is it turns out her and we're not going to give anything away. There's no spoilers, but her lover. There's all this implication all of a sudden that this crime is sort of multi-layered. It's not what it seems. Her relationship with this man was not what she thought it was. He was not who she thought he was. So how do you design a plot like that? Are you a free writer and all of a sudden you're like, wait, this connects? Or are you like, you got it figured out? Or
organically, I just want to start writing the story and get to know these people, right? And but my publisher wants to know what I'm going to write about.
Of course, right. And you're like, thank you, so do I.
So I do have to write a synopsis, and it is extremely helpful when I get 8 chapters in and go, now what? Now what am I going to do?
Right.
And then I go, oh look, I already planned it out. So yeah, but I really, so I write out a synopsis, and then as I'm writing these characters, I get to know them.
Yeah.
And how their reactions, would play out, what their relationships are going to be.
Right.
So like, I have this, I know this man was her former lover that went missing, but I don't know what their real relationship is like until I really dig in. And I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, I wish I could. Even a synopsis would be like too much for me. I'm like, there's a thing, and then that's a thing, and then somebody has a thing.
Then they catch the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then, oh my God, there's a twist, and who knew it was that? I've really, really, really tried to be sort of more of a plotter because I do think that. First of all, it makes total sense that the publisher wants to know what the hell is coming. But I just never know. I never know. And actually sometimes the whole first draft I don't really know. And then sort of the second draft is where, like at the end of the first draft, I'm like, oh, I see, there's a thing. And then I have to sort of.
Yeah, I have this, I don't know what is going on with my brain, but I will layer in all of these threads that I don't really even realize.
Yeah.
And then, I tie some of them up at the end. And then my editor will go, well, what about this thing? You should tie this in. And I go, oh my God, that's perfect.
It's like the subconscious. You have to kind of, there's a little bit of magic, right? You have to sort of trust the process because I think if you really thought about what it takes, people are like, I can never write a book. And I'm like, me neither. I don't know how people do that.
Yeah.
And yet you do it sort of. Yeah,
your brain is working in the background. It's like when you're in the shower and something comes, your brain is somehow, working those things out for you. Thank God.
Yeah, thank God, exactly. Folding laundry, walking the dog. I know those are the things that that's the most important part of writing. So you started as a romance writer, and this is actually my first. I'm horrified to say my first book by you that I read by you, and I loved it. So
we just met last year.
Yeah, we just met. Actually, Victoria's agent is a dear, dear, dear friend of mine, Amy Moore Benson. So shout out to Amy; she's so fabulous. And so she connected us, and I know. So, but I have now a huge backlist to get back to. So tell me, talk to us about the you wrote a lot, and were very successful as a romance writer. Do you still do that?
No, so I wrote, I think 29. I have 29 published romances.
Wow.
Some novellas and but romance readers are voracious.
I know. Yeah.
Publishers will take as many
as you can get them.
Right?
I know, right?
So, my former editor of mine, Tara Parsons, left romance, and she kept asking me if I would write something for her that wasn't romance, and I said no for years. Yeah, because it's really scary to walk away from something
of course that you're so good at, right?
Yeah, and like all the ins and outs, and you have a lot of confidence. So, then all the politics started going insane, and everything felt very dark. I was having a lot of trouble trying to figure out happily ever after.
Right. The world is too dark for romance.
Yeah. And the counter of that is you can really retreat into that, which is great as a great escape.
It's too dark for suspense too, actually. It's just too dark.
But so I finally was like, okay, I'll try to think of a suspense story. And I was like, there's probably going to be sex in it. Like, I think, for me, romance and horror / suspense are two sides of the same coin.
Of course.
They're two important drivers.
Stay
alive.
Right.
And repopulate.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, so yeah, I came up with an idea and we hashed it out. And now that's all I'm writing, because I'm writing one book a year, and it's so
lovely.
chill.
I know. I can't believe. I mean, you were probably writing 2, 3.
Yeah, I was writing 2 to 3 full books a year, and then some novellas mixed in there. So that would be, you're writing one book actively.
Yeah.
You're editing the previous book while you're writing, and you're coming up with an idea for the next book.
And you're promoting the book that's coming out.
And the book that's out, yeah. So
God, yeah.
I that was when I was younger.
Yeah, exactly. I know. The things we can do when you're younger, I'm like, oh, and now I'm even like, a book a year? Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And there was one period where I wrote 3 full-length books and a novella in a year. And my kids, I think they were probably like 8 and 10, they got tired of pizza. Like, they did not want pizza.
Right. They're like, this was every kid's dream until it's totally not every kid's dream, right?
That's right.
And raising children. I mean, so that's like an interesting thing, right? I mean, and of course, you have, I'm sure, a supportive spouse, but you're still the mom, right? There's there's no sort of break. And writing it is sort of treated like this sort of fanciful thing you can do, like Cinderella, just with her little birds following her, and she just types a few words, and it's not the same sort of real job. You're probably working from home, which means at the same time you could be planning meals and grocery shopping and doing laundry, and yet, of course, that's not the reality of it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Long days. How'd you make that work?
Like I said, a lot of pizza, Lunchables. We called Lunchables Dinnerables.
Yeah. You're like, sorry guys,
because my husband worked outside the home, and that was the plan we always had, where I would stay home and write. It was so great when the kids got into elementary.
You're like that, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
So yeah, but then they're home at 3:30 or whatever.
Yeah, and then there's activities and homework, and you're not just like, go do your thing, because they're not independent for a long time, in fact,
And then sometimes I would stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning, because I'm a night owl. But yeah, and I only forgot about them once.
Oh yeah, well then, hey, that's like, as far as I'm concerned, that's like a perfect score.
Our
Once is a rounding error.
Our school system had this thing where they would get off early every other Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Way to confuse us, right? And somebody calls you and they're like,
somebody, like, it was snowing and my son had to go to a friend's house and knock on their door.
Oh my God. You're like, sorry.
So yeah, I'm not a bad mom.
No, you're a great mom. You're a great mom. You're a human mom, it turns out. Like, damn,
right.
You're not supposed to be human and a mother. That's like not allowed. So let's talk about, I also want to talk about, so Kyle is the brother, and yet it's interesting, like we talk about, the way that the family, the loss of Robin impacts Elise is so different from how it impacts Kyle. And part of it, as you said, is because, she looks so much like her sister, Elise does, so much like Robin. But part of it, I think, is maybe just a different dynamic, like as a daughter, she was more of sort of a caretaker of her mom. And, is that something that when you're writing, you're sort of also thinking about how does this impact these different kids? Because it seems to me that it's very prominent in the story that it has a different impact, which I think is really effective.
Yeah, for me, Kyle is he's a very central part of the story.
Yeah.
And he turns to conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And I actually have been thinking about this a lot, because I don't know if you've noticed, there's a lot of conspiracy theories around.
Conspiracy theories? Yes.
And I read some books on it. And to me, it was like, it typically is more common with men. And I think for them, it's a way to try to explain pain in the world, right? Their pain. I think it's like, I'm not a victim, somebody is doing this on purpose, right? So they have this constant argument where he's always trying to tie their sister's murder, like, I don't know if this is really what happened. And Elise is going, look, it's just straight up misogynistic violence. And that's something that happens to women every day. There's not a bigger, theme to it. It's just violence against women, and you're going to have to accept that. But
he does not want to do that.
He does not want to do that, no. And the way that the murder was solved is somebody killed themselves and left a suicide note confessing. And Kyle kind of doesn't believe it. And then when this other person is found murdered, Kyle is going to figure out what happens.
Right.
And Elise doesn't want to listen to him. She doesn't want to believe that the two murders are
Of course,
connected.
right? Because this is her ex-lover.
Right.
Yeah.
And but Kyle, eventually the pieces start coming together.
Yeah, he's onto something. We won't give away anything about that, but well, and the other thing about it, I think that was so interesting is that I think, and I wonder about this too. Like, if you get a resolution to a crime like immediately, like let's say they catch the murderer in the first few months after the crime, or sooner, does it change the sort of like acceptance of that outcome versus like it took 10 years, right? And the way that it happened, right? A suicide note. There's something like it doesn't go through a trial, and it doesn't. There's no
big explanation.
Exactly. So, and then you're still trying to reconcile, motive and all those things. And so, is it less satisfying? Is that part of the reason why? I mean, it doesn't sit all that well. I mean, of course, Elise wants to put this whole thing behind her, but it doesn't sit that well with anybody.
Right.
The initial resolution.
Yeah, because they spent 10 years. Kyle is a computer geek. So he spent 10 years helping his mom look for his older sister. And trying to figure out what happened. So he's been in that mindset since he was a little kid, and all of a sudden he's just supposed to accept that, somebody wrote a note and said, I did it.
Right.
Like, why?
Right.
How?
Exactly. No, not enough answers at all.
Yeah.
And you realize the resources of these tiny towns, like, right? I mean, it sounds like you live in a small town.
Yeah, and I'm from a town of like 2,000 people in Minnesota. So yeah.
You know exactly what it's like. And I live in a relatively small town. I mean, the resources, that these towns have, and actually even, big towns, like so many crimes go, unsolved because of resources, because of, the little things slipping through the cracks. There's not enough.
Right. And if somebody incompetent is in charge, then, or somebody who doesn't care,
or overworked, or exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's what do you do?
And we all have these. It's like you said, it's a misogynist, crime, and there's still that the misogyny lives. It's societally imprinted into all of us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the heads of police departments and everything, and of course you have this 18-year-old girl like who was drinking, like it's all that victim blaming, right? Like,
she's out at a party. She dated a lot of boys.
Yes, exactly. So she's a slut, and she's a drunk, and she probably had it coming. Like we hear that, and even if it's not, as of course that's blunt, but even those little messages that we hear.
Well, what always gets me is whenever you hear the phrase innocent victim, like that's a good victim. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like other people aren't innocent.
Right. Like what's a guilty victim? That right? She just.
I mean, if you're having a shootout with somebody else, okay.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, everybody always is more attuned to the perfect victim.
Of course. And it is so much about appearances. You see the pictures of, victims we judge her worthiness for our resources based on sort of who she was, like how many did she get straight A's, and was she
and is she a young white woman?
Yes, absolutely marginalized victims. Yeah, it's and I can see also from the perspective of their mother, right? Like Kyle is giving her this, he's feeding her this, which she probably wants to sort of believe that there's something more to it. So it becomes a sort of like a way of feeding, the hope that there will be a better resolution, that something will make more sense. More sense,
exactly. To work. Why did this happen? Like just they don't have any of those answers.
No.
And it's almost a way, his way of honoring her, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't protect his sister, but he can do this for her.
Right. He didn't protect his much older sister, right? Again, the sort of like, societal roles that a 12-year-old boy is supposed to play because he's the only boy in that family. Yeah, it's so intense. And then we have Daniel, who is a friend of Kyle's, who comes back to town. There's a little
older brother's best friend.
Which I love.
Bringing in my romance.
I know. I was like, we need a little, like, as you said, like there's a little break from the darkness. And he's a lovely character. He's we won't talk more about that either. But so tell us, like, what do you, what's the process? What are you working on now? This book is about to come out.
Yes, it's coming out June 4th.
June 4th.
Maybe
So you guys are looking at this on June 6th. So the book is already out in the world.
Yay!
Go get your copy. It's available right now. I'm sure it's flying up in the charts. Tell us what are you working on now?
I just finished my next book for 2025.
Yeah.
The working title's Bald-Faced Liar. I don't know if that'll hold. Do you come up with your own titles? I'm terrible.
It's 50-50. Yeah, it's 50-50. Once in
if
a while.
I don't get the inspiration for it, then I'm completely at a loss.
But thankfully marketing is right. I mean, that's one thing that I think if somebody says something that's better, I'm like, I'm all in.
Mm-hmm.
Find me a better title, and it's just. But I like Bald-Faced Liar.
Yeah, I like it too.
Exactly.
Follow Her Down took like 10 emails back and forth with mini lists.
Sure, I'm sure. But that's a really relevant title too. I like that.
Yeah, once you figure it out, you go, oh, okay,
yeah,
work. But,
exactly.
So anyway, Bald-Faced Liar is, again, it's based on what happens to victims after the crime, and it is about a girl who was involved in the Satanic Panic when she was 5.
Wow.
So yeah, we're of the right generation.
We are, right? I love that. I love that.
So, and that's fascinating to me because these kids were so young that I'm sure for some of them this actually happened in their head. These memories were implanted.
Absolutely.
And they think they saw the devil eating babies and all of this horrible sexual assault and torture.
Yeah.
I mean, if you tell little kids often enough that happened to them, then it's like it happened to them.
I can see you like in the library, in like the darkest section of the library. Like, what is this other, what other horrible things happen to small kids? Yeah, exactly. You're like, because that is, I mean, we have, obviously there's oodles of them, but I love that you've chosen like, it's that, it's, it's this.
Well, you're all serial killers.
I mean, I do exactly. I'm not arguing with you. I'm probably next to you in the library, looking at the same things. But it's true, and I think that's a sort of. It seems like maybe we're starting to hear more about it. Is it because like now those, like you said, those young children are sort of fully formed adults and are starting to sort of like maybe finally look back?
Yeah, I saw there's a new book out. I haven't read it, called Black Rainbow or Rainbow Black, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I interviewed Maggie Thrash, so that's why I was like, this is now and I was exactly.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I might read it soon, but I wouldn't want to.
Yeah,
if I'm working on a book with the same theme, then
that was Rainbow Black, and that was about same thing, Satanic Panic. And I think the thing about these subjects, which I love, is that you can write 50. We can read 50 books on it, and they'll all be like so different.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that I think it, like you said, I think she did some research with people who grown up that way and sort of discovered the ways in which they were brainwashed and
the reason this is called Bald-Faced Liar is because first of all, that's after it came out that none of that was true. That was what she lived with in her small town.
I'm sure.
And she doesn't trust anyone.
Right.
She doesn't trust herself because she can't even trust her own memory.
Right.
Her parents were all in on trying to get her to think of more stuff,
Yeah.
So she doesn't present her real self to the world. She has little vignettes with every different person she meets.
Right.
Oh, I'm this person, this is my past. So she lies to everyone.
Oh, she is a bald-faced liar.
She's a bald-faced liar. And then the past comes back to haunt her.
Of course. Yeah.
And
so and then she's confronted with the truth, which is what is the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with actually being a child, because we're so impressionable. And you do sometimes think about like even just the simplest things like, oh, I remember that, being in that place at that time. Or do I remember it, or do I see a picture of it?
Yes.
Or did somebody remind
stories?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how much of that is because I know you form early memories. People have memories from being 3 or 4, but even those things, I don't have. My memories are all like mixed up. So if somebody had implied to me that, and I can see how it happens, and then to be sort of have that follow you your whole life, right?
Well, and I don't know if you've seen anything recently about the Satanic Panic, but the way they interviewed these kids, it was just insane. They'd be like, you don't want to be a bad girl and not tell us what happened. Like, you have to tell us what happened.
Right.
You know, did he do this? If he did this, you have to be good and tell us.
Right.
You know, it was just, when you watch the interviews now, oh my gosh,
it's
horrifying.
horrible. I'm sure it's horrible. Yeah, like what choice did these kids have? Like, you were basically villainized if you didn't.
Yes, like, you're lying. I know you're lying about this. You know, like, oh, it was awful.
Right.
It was awful. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, was that set in one of your? Is that set in a?
That is set in Santa Cruz, actually.
Oh,
so I got to go to Santa Cruz for a week.
So that's near my hometown. Yeah, I love Santa Cruz, and that I'm sure was a hot spot for, lots of strange culture there.
Was it the Macmillan? I think it was called I can't remember the big one.
Yeah, there.
And I thought that happened in the Midwest because we heard so much about it.
Yeah,
you know.
But it was set in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, or in California somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and what a wonderful place to get to visit.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, and my next boat will be set in, right?
I have learned. It took some mistakes, but I have learned to pick a setting very carefully now.
Yeah.
So because if I need to make a research trip, I set one of my books, Problem Child, was set in very, very rural Oklahoma near the Panhandle and like the oil industry town.
Yeah.
And I had to go spend a few days there, and it was beautiful country. But I checked into the motel, and I was literally the only woman in the entire motel because it's
like
all
truckers
industry work, oil industry workers.
Yeah.
And it was a little scary.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure.
I was very conscious of being the only woman there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I set my series, The Badlands Thrillers, is set in a fictitious Williston, which is also that sort of oil boom. And, but it is kind of, it's interesting to go to these places that are so different from anything you've ever been to. But maybe take a buddy next time. Victoria.
Yeah. Well, and it was so helpful to go and stay and have that experience because then I was really what would it be like to live here as a teenage girl?
Right.
That would be
sketchy.
Yeah, very sketchy. And you know that from that oil industry area. Near the Badlands, the shale oil.
Exactly. It's no, that is exactly. So and so now that you finished the draft, so how soon are you somebody who has like dozens of ideas and you're like,
no.
Okay, so you're waiting for inspiration to strike?
Yeah.
Or you have a sense?
I'm not going to get revisions back until August, so I have a little time to decompress and start.
Oh, you get a break? Are you kidding? You get a vacation?
Oh, it's amazing.
It is amazing. I love that. Actually, what a great time too. Like summer's off.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it right. I always was like, for some reason,
is your schedule totally?
All my books always came out early fall. So I was in the I did not plan that very well. I have to really think about
this. So you're really busy.
Yeah. And Montana summer, that's like when you want to be there.
Yes.
You want to put your head down in like November, December, January, in that part of the year. Yeah. So that's so fun. Well, this was so fun. I love that you have a huge backlist, not just of, but look at this. She also has a huge backlist of thrillers you can go check out. And are they all with your same, did you end up with your same editor that you left?
No, she left like the day before I signed the contract, actually.
You're like, listen, what is happening? That happened. I started with Thomas and Mercer and immediately lost my editor as well. But I ended up with a great editor. Do you have a great editor? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I had Chris for a long time, and then I got orphaned again and got a new editor, and now I'm on my fourth editor.
Oh,
but she's really lovely.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to roll with it, right? This business is not.
You have to, and I've been pretty lucky. I mean, some people get orphaned like every book.
I know. Well, you're doing something right. Hang in there, right? This is so fun to talk about. Follow Her Down by Victoria Helen Stone. We will be giving away a copy of this book, so look for it. It's out right now. Go grab your copy. Thank you so much for joining us, Victoria. It was so fun to talk to you.
Thank you for having me, and it was so nice to be here in person.
Yay! We got to do it in person. I love that. Stay tuned for more pictures of Thriller Fest, and we will see you next time on Killer Women. Bye.